The Age of Discovery, or the Age of Exploration, was this big-time period when countries were all about exploring new places, taking over lands, and starting colonies, especially in the Americas. Spain and Portugal were leading the charge, kicking off a trend where a bunch of European countries got into colonizing as their go-to strategy. It all started when Portugal decided to check out the Canary Islands in 1336. Then they found some more islands, Madeira and the Azores, and the coast of West Africa by 1434. Vasco da Gama, another Portuguese explorer, made a big splash in 1498 by finding a way to get to India by sea. Christopher Columbus's trip across the Atlantic for Spain from 1492 to 1504 really got the ball rolling on taking over the Americas. Then there was this huge deal with the Spanish Magellan expedition, which went all the way around the world from 1519 to 1522. This was a game changer that made Europeans rethink everything they knew about the world. After that, there were a ton of trips made across the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans. Portugal was kinda on the edge of Europe, not really fitting in with the big maritime trade scene in the Mediterranean Sea, or even the North Sea and Baltic Sea action. The land wasn't great for farming, so making money through trade was pretty much the only economy in town, even though they were on the fringes of the trade routes. Portugal had this strong merchant class power, more so than other European countries, and the Abyss dynasty, which rose to power with the help of merchants, had to dive into maritime activities to boost trade. It wasn't just that Prince Henry the Navigator had a thing for the ocean. There were real political and economic reasons pushing Portugal to look beyond its borders. With not much clout on the European continent, Portugal's eyes turned to the Atlantic and Africa because, well, they had to. In the 14th century, Portugal got the ball rolling by discovering and colonizing Madeira, Cristiano Ronaldo's hometown, and then they stumbled upon the Azores in the 15th century. With a keen interest in checking Islamic forces and tapping into the African gold trade, Portugal started exploring along the West African coast. After nailing the African expeditions, Portugal got bold and backed Vasco da Gama to find a sea route to India, pulling off the huge win of blazing a trail to India. Spain was smack dab next to the Western Mediterranean and was naturally all up in the competition for control over Mediterranean sea trade. The Kingdom of Aragon, which is what Spain was before it was Spain, led the charge. Aragon first snagged the Balearic Islands, using them as a launch pad to spread its influence across the Mediterranean. By 1442, it had taken over the thrones of the Duchy of Athens and the kingdoms of Sicily and Naples, basically setting up shop as the maritime boss of the Mediterranean. But then, in 1453, the Ottoman Empire came in hot, wiping out the Eastern Roman Empire and snagging the Principality of Athens from Aragon, effectively blocking Aragon's trade routes by taking over the interior. This was an act of retaliation for the Kingdom of Aragon's hostility during the Ottoman expansion. So, Aragon had to look elsewhere for trade opportunities. Spain came into being after the rulers of Aragon and Castile tied the knot, uniting their kingdoms. Trade in the Mediterranean was getting sketchy, not just because of the Ottoman Empire, but also due to Barbary pirates making the waters unsafe for Spanish merchants. Plus, Portugal was already on its way to finding a sea route to India, and Spain was worried about being left in the dust. So, Spain jumped into the race to discover new trade routes, not wanting to fall behind Portugal. Before Europeans hit the high seas, ocean navigation was pretty much a shot in the dark. There wasn't any real know-how on navigating the Big Blue, and info on places like America was super sketchy. Most folks didn't even know it existed. They had some basic tips on navigation, but that was about it, and only a handful of people had even heard of America. However, they did get their hands on some cool tools like compasses, astrolabes, and quadrants through past hookups with Islamic cultures. These gadgets let them figure out directions way better than just eyeballing the sun and stars. Plus, they picked up some solid ocean sailing tricks from these exchanges. With these basic tools for sailing the ocean and the rise of the Ottoman Empire pushing Europeans to look for new routes, they got really good at navigating the seas, and fast. They came up with nice ships like the Carrack and Caravel, and eventually the galleon. Before anyone really noticed, Europeans were ruling the waves, topping the charts in ocean navigation skills. The age of exploration really got going when Christopher Columbus, after landing in the Bahamas and checking out the Caribbean, grabbed a few local folks and brought them back with him. This bold move made Europeans face the reality of a brand new continent, shaking up everything they thought they knew. To avoid stepping on each other's toes during this rush to explore and claim lands, they set up the Treaty of Tordesillas. Vasco da Gama nailed it by reaching India in 1498, and Afonso de Albuquerque made moves into Southeast Asia. When everyone figured out Columbus's India was actually not India, it was named America after Amerigo Vespucci, who was all, "Hey, this isn't India, it's a whole new continent." Funny thing is, Columbus went to his grave thinking he'd found a new route to India. Then, the crew led by Ferdinand Magellan really outdid themselves by sailing all the way around the world, even uncovering the Pacific Ocean in the process. When Spain and Portugal started cashing in big time from hitting the high seas, England, the Netherlands, and France decided they wanted in on the action too. They basically said, forget that Treaty of Tordesillas thing that Spain and Portugal had going on, and started muscling in on their turf through fights and wars. England and the Netherlands got really into it by setting up the East India Company, diving deep into the global trade game. England and the Netherlands ended up going head-to-head in a bunch of wars. England came out on top in the war against the Netherlands. Eventually, England came out on top and kicked off what would be known as the Golden Era of the British Empire. France wasn't about to sit this one out and jumped into the fray, squaring off against Britain all over the place, in Africa, South Asia, and North America. Since the 16th century, folks have been into novels about sailing, and by the 18th century, pirate stories were all the rage. One of the big hits in England was A General History of the Pirates, packed with stories about now famous pirates like Blackbeard, the Jolly Roger, Anne Bonny, and William Kidd. While these books made sailing seem like a big adventure, the real deal was tough as nails. Back then, navigators took to the seas on small cruise ship-sized sailing ships with a crew of dozens, navigating the globe's oceans solely with the power of the wind. Naturally, making land was a rare event, happening just once every few months, with no chance for bathrooms, laundry, or showers. Sailing back then was packed with risks, scurvy, hitting underwater reefs, doldrum windless area, you name it. And the food? Just hardtack biscuits, salted meat, sketchy water, and rum. But despite the rough conditions, sailors kept at it because there was serious cash to be made. Even a little bit of trade goods from the United States or India can turn into a massive fortune once you get them back home. The age of exploration basically wrapped up when every bit of land and ocean got put on the map. After that, the focus shifted to conquering and checking out the insides of continents. Spain took control of South America, and other latecomers like Britain, France, and the Netherlands started eyeing up Central and South America, Africa, and Oceania for their piece of the pie. During this time, all the European big shots were out in the oceans, battling it out to open up new markets. A huge influx of gold and silver from America into Europe caused prices to skyrocket, which nudged Europe into the Age of Enlightenment, kicked off the Industrial Revolution, and set the stage for imperialism.